Hello and welcome to the Grand Tour Fans, the channel from fans for fans. My name is Fons van Hart and I'm your host. We received this podcast from Freddy Clode of the Home and Host podcast, who did an amazing interview with the Grand Tour executive producer Andy Wilman. We're very grateful that Freddy did this and we would like to thank him and Andy Wilman for the permission to share this on our YouTube channel. In this first part, which you're gonna hear right now, you'll hear the story of Andy Wilman from Repton School, where he learned to know Jeremy Clarkson, all the way to Top Gear and more. We'll soon share the next part with you when Mr. Wilman tells about the Top Gear year. So subscribe to this channel, click on the notification bell and you get a notification when the new episode is online.
Andy Wilman. Obviously, this podcast is actually about yourself.
Okay.
And obviously, a huge part of your life has been Top Gear and the Grand Tour.
Yeah.
But if we just go back an even bigger step than 2002, so sort of 1962, you're born in Derbyshire.
Yeah.
And off you eventually go to school, prep school, and then off to Repton, where your classmate, I'm guessing, the same age or not? I couldn't quite work this out nor decipher it, but you were at school with Mr. Clarkson. Same year?
He was 2 years above me, 2 years older.
But friends or not?
Yeah, we were in the same house.
Right,
so
okay.
These houses, like private school, here we go, public school.
Sure.
The house is about 50 boys in a house. And we were in, like, the shittest one in terms of it. You know, it would pride itself on the most broken windows, in the most trouble it got into. It was like the wreck at the end of that street. It's all relative. You know, we're not talking about Top Boy. It was still a public school.
Yeah.
But it was a sort of crummy place for if relatively troublemakers, I suppose, who congregated there. So we were in the same environment like that. He was 2 years ahead of me. Then I was like brainy, so I jumped a year.
Oh, wow.
So I was a year ahead in age. And we did become mates there because I suppose just, you know, you either stand out through sport, which we were both utterly shit at, or you stand out by getting into trouble.
Yeah.
So we were like, well, we'll take that route then.
Of course.
And we both instinctively took that route. And then, so we did become mates in that sense, but not massively so, because a year in those sort of public schools, a year difference, there is a bit of a hierarchy,
of course,
for socialising.
But there was a badge of honour almost for being in that house. It was run down, and it sounded like that brought the boys closer. Brought the boys closer together to be part of that, like, misplaced house almost. Yeah,
and I think if you fast forward with it, when we, you know, Top Gear was always often known for controversy, for getting into trouble, winding people up. Now, most of the time, we got that right. Excuse me, we got that right tonally. And what I mean by that is we would get into trouble, we would cause outrage in the Daily Mail or the Daily Mirror or whatever, but nobody really cared. Sometimes we got it really wrong when we were stupid, arrogant and tasteless, but most of the time when we got into trouble, it was, you know, forgiven. So, and the only reason that happened is we most of the time we could do it with a bit of charm, our getting into trouble. And I do believe that came from when we were at Repton.
Right, okay.
That we had that same thing where, you know, the getting into trouble that we did never made a teacher go, "You are a hateful human being."
Of course. You were cleverly charming.
Yeah, like "I'll get you next time, Butler," or whatever. It was, we'd kind of walk that line where,
like a flanker cheating in sort of a rugby game and not getting noticed. You kind of get away with being a bit cheeky and naughty.
We were that. Yeah. And we were, I'd like to think we had some charm about it, so that you're kind of forgiven. And we did that with Top Gear. So the BBC, now marry that to the BBC. What the BBC needs in its remit because it's got to speak to everybody in the nation, and the BBC will be the first to admit that it's got a kind of Islington darling of the elite bias.
Sure.
They do need shows like that in their armoury, and we were good at it. We were good at speaking to a big part of the country that the BBC traditionally doesn't speak to.
Of course. But also you were you were the biggest show in the world. So in a sense, they couldn't do...
biggest factual entertainment show in the world. I always leave that bit out.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
They couldn't risk losing you though, could they, really? You're like the guys...
Well,
no,
it happened.
Yeah, no, of course, eventually. But I mean, you were saying that every single episode there was a bit of controversy, or not every app, but like a large majority of them. But that's why a lot of people tuned in, because on top of their fix of cars and everything else, they actually enjoyed and looked out and, you know, looked forward to the controversy and the cheek and the fallout.
Yeah, they did. They enjoyed the mischief. And I also like to think we were good at handling our mischief. You know, I'm trying to think of an example. There was a film where we went, the three of them went caravanning for the weekend. Quite an early days one. And at the end, there's a big fire in the caravan, and that just totally, you know, chip pan fire, which we completely set up, right? And obviously some fireman gets 20 quid by ringing the Daily Mirror and going, that fire was faked, they planned it. So the Daily Mirror rang me and said, we know that you faked that fire, and TV fakery was a big deal at the time.
Sure.
And they're like, we know you faked that fire. And I went, well, of course I fucking did.
Yeah.
And your point is what? And they're like, I was going, well, you faked it. And I'm like, it's a caravan fire at the end of a film that matters not at all to anybody.
Yeah.
You know, it's factual entertainment, and sometimes the entertainment's a bit more than the factual.
Of course.
Now, the reason I'm saying is, I think we handled our issues well in the main. And the public didn't give a shit.
No, of course not.
If you said, yeah, of course we faked that fire because we're trying to entertain you.
But also it's not...
Before the 9 o'clock news.
It's not sort of you were Bear Grylls and sort of pretending to survive out in the open and like, you know, suddenly as soon as the cameras went off, they bought food for you. No. And that would kind of undercut all his achievements.
Yes.
Like, it was an unnecessary thing to kind of get too overexcited about.
Yeah, if we frigged a road test going a car was... better than it was, and people are going to spend money on that. Then they deserve to be hung, drawn, and quartered. But we'd only muck about with stuff that was, like I say, entertainment.
And when did your obsession with cars start?
I have never had an obsession with cars.
Really?
Ever.
Hate them.
Don't hate them, but I kind of moderately like them, but no more than that.
Okay.
Never.
And do you remember sort of, obviously Top Gear originally started in 1977, I think. Do you remember watching that as a child at Repton with Jeremy?
No.
Being like, we could do a lot better than this?
No. Nothing like that. Didn't think like that.
No.
We only watched the special. No, not special. What am I talking about? Specials. The Professionals.
Right, okay.
Yeah, that's the only car stuff you like, was a car chase at the beginning of the Professionals. When they'd like abuse that Rolls Royce on the airfield. But it's... no, I've got no love of cars. It was only... Cars have been... the device by which our stories unfold.
You can do your entertainment, yeah, of course.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. They're the sort of beacons which carry your story, your narrative, almost.
Well, the whole... I mean, people have asked, why were those shows successful and why did people watch the Grand Tour? And I think it's always about pressing buttons with viewers. And essentially what we do is a journey into the male brain. We happen to use cars. They could be athletes on a tour of the world. They could be foodies or sports people or whatever, like a league of their own, sports and comedians.
Of course.
They happen to be motoring journalists, and we do it through cars.
Yeah.
But at the core, it's a journey into the male brain, which is, as you'll know as a male, there's a lot of empty room in there. It's a huge black hole with not much in it.
No.
But it's also quite a funny place to be, because you get to self-deprecation quickly, you get to banter quickly, and the reason Friends, I think, is so popular is the stereotypes of the girls and the boys everyone likes and everyone can identify with.
Yeah.
They play to the stereotypes of boys and girls and they have the kind of faults that you like to have, that it's okay to have. And I think our guys are a bit like the guys in Friends like that, you know, they come across a bit thick, they come across as cack-handed, they come across as over-ambitious and bombastic. But as long as it's done with some charm.
Yeah.
But that's what people tune into.
Yeah. But
it isn't the cars.
I've never seen a show with so much pressure after you guys moved on from it to try and replicate a chemistry trio. And obviously they got it drastically wrong the first time with Chris Evans and that lot. And then now they've sort of gone back to people who don't have any interest or knowledge of cars really in Flintoff and that lot, just to try and get chemistry. Right. But they obviously noticed that one of the main tricks, obviously it's different because your presenters were all trained in the journalistic world and also big sort of engine heads, but they obviously noticed that to try and make it a more, I don't know, success in line with the previous series, they needed to put chemistry as the first thing. Which you wouldn't often see in another show, because even though it's very important to have like presenters who get on and, like as you said, look incredible together and it's like a natural friendship, most shows then rely on, like, I don't know, they're judging people or something, whereas they've realised now that, I don't know, that they're almost putting chemistry before the cars again without any knowledge of, I don't know, the people they're putting in charge have no knowledge of cars, but they've gone like, even though it's a car show. Yeah,
there's a balance. You know, R3 do know what they're talking about with cars.
They're the perfect.
So they can dip into cars,
of course,
and they can pick them up, put them down, metaphorically, whenever they want in the journey or whatever. And they've got complete authority on the topic, so you feel in good hands. So I know what you mean, and there's a difference between a presenter who goes, "I love cars."
Yeah.
That can be like a footballer who goes, "I love cars," which is another phrase for "I can afford nice cars."
Exactly.
So I do think our guys have got the edge there.
Yeah. No, massively.
They absolutely, you know, nobody can make a car come to life like Jeremy can.
Not at all.
And if it's a shithole banger, he's brilliant, and so on and so on. So we do have that. Yeah, we have got, I'd say, that whole package is that the chemistry developed properly back to those early years at the BBC. The car knowledge is there. Third element, the journalism. And the journalism is very important because it means they have total control of the words coming out of their mouth. So there's no writers giving them things to say or do. And that's lightning in a bottle when all those three things come together.
Yeah.
So Top Gear now, they have, you know, Chris Harris really knows what he's on about with cars, and he's a good presenter. The other two, I think, are good presenters.
Yeah.
I'm saying I think because I don't watch, and I've never watched any of the iterations.
No.
So I can see what they're doing, but I know that also what they're doing is, you're right, they're ticking some boxes. They're going, right, the recipe that's got them to make this dish includes male banter, some car knowledge, put it together, and you'll have what those three gave us. Yeah. You never will.
No, of course not. It's impossible to replicate.
You never will, because the flow and ebb and the natural ability they had with all those three elements can't be replicated.
But that's why it seems pointless in a way to try and even continue it. I mean,
I don't know. It's it's only fucking telly is the phrase.
Yeah.
And it's an hour a week where you can choose to watch or not. They are good at what they do. Chris Harris, like I say, is very good. The other two guys, I know they're good on TV. And there's a lot of hard people working really hard to make a very good show behind it, really talented, good people. So I've often been asked, why bother? Why do they bother? Why do they bother? And I can see why they're doing it, because they're making a show that is watched. It's getting good numbers. Yeah. And it's not for me to look at their stuff and go, oh, we did that first and now they're messing with our legacy, because we've moved on to something else.
Of course.
We never owned the words Top Gear.
No.
I don't look at them and think they're messing with our legacy. They're doing their thing, we're doing our thing.
Can I take you back to when you leave Repton, and then obviously, do you head off to university after that, or do you go straight into work?
No. I screwed up all the A-levels.
Right.
And I thought, well, this doesn't matter because I've now joined a band. Because remember, it's 1979. I'm the singer in this band.
What were you called?
With my mates, we were called 6 Inch Split. But it was a punk era, right? So I thought, with my band, we're going to London and we'll be rock stars within months. So university and A-levels don't matter.
Yeah, felt that.
So I got a job at McDonald's to pay the rent while the band is working.
What McDonald's was that?
It was Piccadilly,
Right.
Haymarket. I was fired on Friday, started on Monday, had a fight with the guy in charge of chips at the front. And it was their flagship store. It couldn't have gone worse because it's Piccadilly. It's their flagship store. It's lunchtime. And it was brutal, the work in there. And this guy kept screaming at me there weren't enough chips. And I said there were. So we had a full-on sort of fight by the chip section.
Nice.
And it's lunchtime. So I didn't even wait to be fired. I just sort of left because that was a game over. Band lasted a month tops.
Right.
Yeah. So I thought no problems with that because I'll be a famous actor instead. I'll just go to acting college. I don't need university. So I did a bit of that, and that went wrong. And so I actually went back to college or university when I was about 25.
Okay.
When I finally realised, okay,
Are you not
I
be a rock
give
star?
in. Yeah. I give in. I'm not going to do any of those things. So I went back to university then, late.
And where did you go?
Kiel.
Kiel, where's that?
What do you mean, where's that?
I don't know, I've never heard of
What do
it.
you mean, where's that?
I've never heard of it.
Poor Kiel. It's, I think it's a good one now.
Okay.
But in those days, if you stopped and asked directions at Kiel, they'd enrol you, you know.
Really?
Yeah. It's like...
Is it in London?
Delivery man would have been like,
Yeah.
here, stay, do geography.
Do a master's.
It was like, it's a campus one up near Newcastle under Lyme,
Okay.
Stoke-on-Trent.
Yeah.
Kiel services on the M6.
And are you hanging out then with 18-year-olds? Is that quite a weird
how do you
experience?
want to put that?
Yeah, sorry, not in a weird way.
Harvey Weinstein, yeah.
Well, no, you're not old enough to be, they are 18.
Yeah, there was like 19-year-olds who had just left home, and they're like, woo, and then I'm
And you're like a
25
hard-nosed
and I've
punk
not
rocker.
been there. But I'm obviously miserable because I'm like going back into that kind of environment. But actually I thought, right, fuck it, I'm going here to, everything's gone wrong, I'm here to work.
Yeah.
So I did work quite hard. I had a good time, but worked quite hard. And the time flew by. Got my degree, Russian and American Studies.
Well, so that's what's again.
Well, I thought I'll do American Studies, and you had to do something with it. And I literally, because it was just I'm going back to college, I literally got a pin and went,
Also, the height of the Cold
landed on
War.
Russian. Yeah, and I thought, well, this is it. I forget acting and forget music. I'm going to be a spy.
Yeah.
So this is all
Way
worked
more
out
exciting.
perfectly. This is fate. And then we did like a couple of months in Russia.
Wow.
And it was a Gorbachev time, so it was still the Iron Curtain.
Oh my god.
Yeah. So there was like 30 of us, students, living in a town called Kalinin.
Studying at the university there.
You study at university there, like an exchange.
Yeah.
And we did the black market for all our money. Because it was like the official exchange rate was 1 ruble, £1, which is complete bollocks.
Yeah.
But we were getting 100 rubles on the black market, so we just flog everything
Well,
we had. So I'd go to the park every day with carrier bags full of stuff.
Oh my God.
Meet the black market guys.
that's awesome.
And
was it quite
weird.
scary?
No, they were. Honestly, by the time you clear customs at Moscow airport, you think, why the fuck are we having a Cold War?
Yeah.
No one here wants a Cold
Yeah.
War. We don't want one.
No.
No one's got an inclination to fight.
Yeah.
Everybody was lovely and interested, and it's tragic that politics kept people like down like that.
And you were speaking Russian? Do you still speak
Well, we
Russian?
it was Russian studies.
Right, okay.
So not pure language.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd say we got to O level.
Okay.
Oh no, I can't say O level. GCSE.
GCSE.
Yeah, we got to about GCSE.
That's pretty
level. Ah.
So this is about 1988, right?
No, 88, 89.
Yeah, okay.
Then I thought, right, now I'll be a spy. So I'll go to. So I took the Foreign Office entrance exam. Now you have to take an intelligence test first, which I failed that. So that was like failure number 3.
Yeah.
It's one of those tests where there's a bucket, it's got to be moved over there.
Sure.
There's endless questions and they never end.
Very, very hard, yeah.
And you had to get over 50%. So all the spies out there are at least 50%.
Especially at
clever.
work.
Yeah. And I failed that. So how fucking thick can you be? And then Jeremy was by now
on
a
Top Gear,
journalist.
right?
No, he was just a print journalist.
Right.
Him
He was working for the car magazine.
Well, him and a friend called Jonathan Gill had a motoring press agency. So what they would do, they'd road test a car, write the review, and then send it out. They'd sell it to all the local newspapers.
Okay.
That couldn't
essentially
afford
like
their own.
PR.
Not PR. No, it was an agency though.
No, but I mean, essentially in the sense that they write one kind of
They write
review
one
and then
review
send it out.
and then
to,
flog it to loads of different newspapers. Yeah, so they had that business. And Jeremy I owe him a massive debt because I'm always, apart from me going, despite the fact I go, I'm going to be a rock star, I'm going to be an actor and everything, riddled with self-doubt. And I'm not saying hasn't got self-doubt either, but he was always like, you're good with words, you look around you, you can write, go for journalism. And I was like, no, I can't do that. And if you try and get onto a journalism course, there's 10,000 applications and they take 4 people. I can't do that.
No.
And he was like, just start, and he kept bugging at me to do it. And I wouldn't have done it without him, actually.
So this is a meeting or a conversation you had upon returning from Russia and finishing at uni.
Finishing at uni,
you came down
what
to
you
London.
going to do now? And then, so, uni's bought you 3 years of not having to decide about anything,
Sure.
not have a career. And I'm 29 or something like that.
And you'd remained friends with Jeremy throughout leaving school?
Yeah, he was down here, I was still down here. And he was like, you can do that. So I was like, I can't. So there was a motoring newspaper had started called Auto Express, weekly paper. And he said, look, they are churning through copy. They need stuff. So all he did was he rang the editor and he said, a mate of mine's going to give you a call. And then he said, right, you think of some ideas for them. So I rang the guy from a phone box because there were no mobile phones. And I just kept putting the 10p's in and my interview was kind of in the phone box. And he was like, so what motoring experience have you got? And I was like, none really. And he went, no, it's okay. Well, we need experienced journalists as well. So what journalism experience have you got? I said, well, I'd say also none there. And he said, well, that's not the end of the world. He went, you've written stuff before. And I said, well, no, I can't say I have either. So that's none as well. And so he said, oh, this isn't great. But he went, but we are screaming out for words. So write me some stuff and send it in. And I did. And he said, right, we'll take that and start Monday.
Right.
And then it went on from there. So I was like thrown in.
Was that a full-time job then?
Yeah.
Well, okay.
He said, we'll take you on for like 6 months.
Okay.
On like £1.
And where was that based out of?
Camden, Black Cat Factory.
Okay. So at that point you were living, you had a flat in London, which you were, renting with friends or? Was it
I had a girlfriend.
Right, okay.
And we were there and so I started doing that.
So it was sort of just by accident in the way that the industry you ended up working in, or the genre I should say, was motoring. You'd been given the advice to be a journalist, but like
that was a lucky
had
break. Jeremy
phoned you up and been like, Marco P.O. wanted you to go review his restaurant.
All about cars.
Yeah.
It was a lucky break.
Wow.
But I loved story, and then you just learn very quickly.
Yeah.
And they knew that I didn't know much, but they knew that I was bright enough to have around.
So you're given a 6-month contract, and how long do you actually end up staying there for?
2 years, 3 years.
2 years.
Maybe.
And then where after that?
Then Top Gear magazine began. And Top Gear magazine was going to be a big glossy launch. So they were poaching people. So I was poached from Auto Express to be the features editor. because that became my thing. That I wasn't going to be. I'm not a great driver. I wasn't going to be the road testing guy, but I could do motoring stories.
Mm-hmm.
So I would go around finding motoring stories. Like, I remember in Los Angeles, I found the old airport where Steve McQueen used to live with his bikes and his planes when he dropped out
Yeah.
at the height of his power.
Yeah.
And the guy, so I just went following Steve McQueen, people like Bud Eakins, his stunt driver and biking mate,
Wow.
and things like that. So then in the desert in Dubai, I found the sheikh who was building a pickup truck that was the size of a big house.
Wow.
With bedrooms inside them, and
That's
the living
incredible.
room under the bonnet and stuff. And it's like the travel wasn't as sort of big as it was. So
Yeah.
Dubai wasn't built really.
No.
It was like Wild West. So I was doing stuff like that. And then next twist of fate, which again involves Jeremy. Jeremy gets his first solo series with the BBC. He's been doing Top Gear successfully, and then they offered him this show called Motor World, where he would go around looking at the car culture in different countries.
Okay.
And he was like, obviously wanted to do that, and they were like, who do you want to work with? And he was like, if I'm honest, nobody that we've got in the office. But I do know a guy who this is his sort of thing, who looks at the culture of motoring.
Mm-hmm.
So he was like, do you want to do it? And I was like, yeah. And I didn't have a fucking clue what to do. But so it was me, him, a director, a cameraman, the soundman, and that was it.
Wow.
The four of us. Is that 4 or 5?
5.
5.
Yeah.
Right. And we set off. So I was like, well, I'll call myself the producer then, you know. And
Yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't know what producers did. But we just bumbled around the world. But there was a lot of ability, if I
Yeah.
may make so bold. I knew what I was doing with stories,
Yeah.
if I didn't know what I was doing with telly. Jeremy certainly knew what he was doing. And he was like improving all the time as a presenter. He was a great script writer for his
Yeah.
own stuff, and you know, story-wise.
So pre-production, you just plotted sort of 5 or 6 locations you wanted
You'd
to
have
go
a good
to.
look at a country like Italy or Cuba,
Yeah.
and things like that, or Iceland.
But the BBC weren't asking, what are you guys thinking about doing when you're out there? Or was it quite...
Nah, it
No,
was Pebble Mill up in Birmingham.
Yeah,
It was so laid back.
right.
It was perfection.
I thought that's
They
awesome.
didn't know what we were doing.
Yeah.
I mean, they went on. I remember the first country we were going to do was Japan, and the man who ran the sort of Top Gear department up in Pebble Mill, he went, right, well, get out there. He said, take $5,000 and draw $5,000 out of stores or whatever, and go out there and do some research and find some stories. So I went out and I came back and he went, how's it going? I said, "Oh, good." And he was like, have you got that money? And what's left? And I went, I spent it all. And it was like, what? And I said, well, you said take $5,000. So it was, and then you start to realise there are budgets and that kind of thing. But we did that.
And how did that show get received?
It was really popular.
Wonderful.
It was a big hit on BBC Two. I mean, it was getting Iceland. I think the show on Iceland got 7 million.
Wow.
Now you think about what gets 7 million today.
That's insane.
7 million would put you number one on,
Yeah.
or top 3 in BBC One,
Easy, yeah.
ITV. It was us versus like Gardener's World.
Sure.
You know, 6 million, 7 million,
Yeah,
all
yeah.
that kind of stuff. So we were getting really big numbers, and it was the genesis of where we were headed with Top Gear, in that it had a male-female audience.
Mm-hmm.
Because you got the culture of the country, it looked good, and there's loads of girls who love cars, but there's also a load of girls who want to watch some cultural travel, and they're happy that cars are in it, you know. And we just, so those seeds were born.
So that being a sort of incredible success, did other networks surely they came sniffing for the two of you, or not at all?
No.
Really?
No.
Even though you're getting
Actually,
into
that's
7
a
mil?
good point. Nobody rang up.
Really?
It's a good point, though.
Yeah. Because you've gone, your first foray into TV, and you've made an incredible success of yourself very, very quickly. you'd expect then, with Clarkson being such a attractive personality to have on TV and your production wizardry working an absolute treat, that people would come calling.
Yeah, you're right, and they didn't. I've never thought of that.
But the success of that
Don't know why that was.
The success of that did allow you and Jeremy to go like, right, we can do this together on TV. We're a great working team, and also should we start thinking about Top Gear, which actually has been slogging along for the last 20 years.
We did 2 series of that, Motorworld. Then we did a thing called Extreme Machines, which was like Motorworld, like it was a travel thing, but it could have been jet fighters, oil tankers, helicopter, Apache gunships, blah. It was all sorts of things.
Yeah.
And that was a hit too, but it didn't have that kind of fairy dust that Motorworld had.
No.
And then what happened then? Oh yeah, then. Now, always happens. So the BBC said to Jeremy, right, you're wasted doing cars and planes and speedboats. So they gave me his own chat show, the Clarkson chat show. And that was quite esoteric, because it wasn't like a Graham Norton thing where you were going for big names. It was like a journalistic thing, written by Jeremy, with his view on things. So it was always going to be niche. It was always going to be like...
Were you working on that?
Yeah, because we just sort of worked together.
Yeah.
We didn't really think about any other way. But that was always going to be like a $2.5 million job, and a very Marmite show. But, so numbers-wise, not a big deal, but it made him it finished off his learning to be a presenter. I'm convinced of that.
Yeah.
It made him the presenter he is.
Right.
Because the studio is a different animal.
Of course.
And before that, if you watch his stuff, it's like you stand there, you deliver your piece to camera. That's all TV was like that.
Yeah.
You stand, you say your things, and then you move on. And the studio loosened him up.
So he's actually, without really sort of planning on, gone on you both have, gone on the ideal learning curve, where if you took little samples of each show you've done over the last couple of years, which have really worked, you then start to think, actually, wait a second, this Top Gear magazine format's not really working. Why don't we introduce that live studio format? Like, we can do a lot better.
Well, no, that was, you see, now that was not our doing initially.
Oh, really?
No. There was, so he left Top Gear in mid-90s, because he couldn't think anything to say anymore. And I was a presenter on it briefly, but so shit that I was sacked quite quickly. I'm not meant to be in front of camera.
Do you have some of those old films still?
Well, they're knocking around on YouTube.
Yeah.
But fucking hell, they're chronic. And,
did you not enjoy it?
No.
No.
And I wasn't bothered either.
Yeah.
I said it like a kid does. If you say to a kid, do you want some cake? And then, do you want some chocolate? And they'll go, yeah, because it's there.
Of course.
So, and I was like, when I left the magazine to work on the show, to do Motorworld, I was like, oh yeah, and I want to present some items, and they went, yeah, sure. But I didn't really want it.
No.
I just thought, well, I'm going to get it.
But at least you had your
but I was crap,
and
therefore they got rid of me.
Yeah.
Well, that was a great interview, which we really enjoyed. If you can't wait for part 2, subscribe and click on that notification bell so you'll get a message when the next episode is online. Thank you for watching and listening. Goodbye.